Good evening, everyone. Superior Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan John joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. The weekend is upon us, and so is now the dry, hot, and humid pattern that's going to be in place as we extend throughout the next week. We're seeing those temperatures ramp up this weekend in addition to that humidity. So anticipate a warmer but completely dry weekend. I know we still have some isolated showers to contend with for today, and we are seeing them this evening, but they'll taper off tonight and will dry up then completely likely for the weekend. That chance for a stray shower will likely come to an end. It will be warmer and again very humid, especially by Sunday. It's already going to be muggy on Saturday, but by Sunday it's very humid, so unbearably humid, similar to what we had for those real humid days earlier this week, remaining then hot and humid likely for most of next week. So once we see these temperatures ramp up Sunday, it's going to stay hot on us for a lot of next week and very humid for the majority, if not all of next week. I don't really see much relief from that humidity in sight once it picks back up going throughout this weekend, looking ahead to next week. So unfortunately, just an unpleasant stretch of weather in terms of dealing with that humidity. Of course, the great news, though, during this stretch, there is little rain. So we will certainly take that coming off of dealing with a lot of rain here as of recent. Austin, good evening. Today, hot, miserable, muggy day. Unfortunately, Austin, today was probably the best for the foreseeable future, as we're going to be watching the temperatures, the humidity way higher than what we had for today. Find it easier to mow during late evening or early morning. Austin, good point there. Best to hold off if you could do some yard work more around those times and avoiding that peak of that daytime heat looking ahead here over the next week. Joe, good evening to you. Thank you both and all of you for tuning in for this Friday edition of Nate at 8. So that's some of what we're going to be covering, diving right into that shower that we had in place. A lot of what we've seen going throughout today, we've had some pockets of heavy rain, but a lot of what we've seen has been more of these light showers. Notice how there are more very hit or miss. They're more brief, but we're still tracking some of these showers into this evening. They'll likely taper off here early on tonight as Futurecast is showing. We'll start to see a decrease in cloud cover then likely going into Saturday morning. It's still a fairly cool morning. It's not real warm. Not as cool, though, as what we had for this morning. So we will likely hold 60s. It'll be around the mid 60s tomorrow morning. So you could say more mild, not a real warm start to tomorrow, but a fairly mild start to Saturday. And thankfully not real muggy, at least for tonight either. So as we look ahead then throughout the day, Saturday, it will be turning muggy by Saturday afternoon. At that point, highs are well in the 80s. So we're going to be trending a little warmer Saturday with respect to today. So very warm and muggy day on Saturday. And then that turns into a warm night. Warm, I say, because those low temperatures likely hold around 70. I don't think we get back in the 60s. So 70 plus for a low, that's a pretty warm night. And it'll be muggy as well into Sunday morning. And we'll notice then it turning very humid, just unbearably humid by Sunday. High temperatures in the 90s at this point. You factor in that humidity with these highs in the 90s, and we're going to see that heat index. That's how hot it feels. It'll be closer to 100 likely Sunday afternoon. So just not pleasant, unfortunately. And really, this heat's getting to the point where it's not only excessive heat, but it can be dangerous. So we want to be using caution and stay hydrated, take breaks in the shade, air conditioning, find ways to cool off, which I know a lot of cooling centers will likely be opening up across the area. So even if you don't have that opportunity, if you can seek out a cooling shelter, a place to go to cool down and get out of that heat for some time. And we're getting into the stretch where we're not only dealing with some hot and humid afternoons, but these nights, they're warm and muggy. We're getting into a stretch here where these lows are 70 plus. There's just no relief. You have 70 plus for a low, and that's still just warm and muggy overnight. There's just no relief from the humidity or the warmth here once it picks up this weekend and continuing for the vast majority of next week. It's unfortunately just a very hot stretch and very humid stretch of weather coming our way. And as you can see Sunday, it's hot, it's very humid, likely barely a cloud in sight. So there's abundant sunshine Sunday, good amount of sunshine on Saturday, but a few more clouds likely in the mix. And again, not anticipating that potential for a stray shower this weekend like what we had for this afternoon, this evening. That will likely not return as we go throughout the weekend. And a lot of what we see Sunday carries over into Monday. abundant sunshine and high temperatures Monday afternoon, likely climbing a bit further into the 90s, around the mid 90s Monday. And we'll repeat that Tuesday, but likely have a few more clouds in the mix and further increase in cloud cover, further increase in rain chances, and then temperatures gradually dropping back down. That will be the theme then arriving late next week for that second half of next week. Surely no rain Sunday, no rain Sunday. You got it. It's no rain Sunday. Has the heat index ever reached danger or extreme danger? Sure has, Austin. Yep, absolutely. We've seen the heat index reach into 105 plus. Yes, absolutely. We get into that danger range, 105 plus, 110 plus. It's rare, but yes, we have seen that here in the Ohio Valley, 105 plus heat index. It's going to be close for us to reach in the danger 105 plus. It's going to be close. I think we can get in the lower 100s at least, maybe at times 105 plus. It's just, it's certainly excessive heat altogether. And we're going to be keeping a close eye on it here going into next week. We are under that excessive heat watch. So, just emphasizing the fact that a hot stretch of weather's ahead really is what that is. And excessively hot, meaning that, this is to the point where we want to be practicing that heat safety, right? We don't want to be pushing ourselves outdoors. We don't want to, really risk it when it's that hot. We don't want to underplay this hot weather, as it can be very dangerous to us if we're not staying hydrated, if we're not getting some breaks from that heat and the air conditioning, and it can be dangerous. So certainly want to be safe with it this weekend, and again for most of next week. These highs are still near, if not above 90 degrees for a lot of the next 7 days, even a lot of the next 10 days. It's just a hot and humid stretch of weather ahead. So the weekend forecast, before we start to dive a little more into next week, again, to sum up this coming weekend for tomorrow, mostly sunny, then turning sunny on Sunday, well in the 80s Saturday, into the 90s then likely on Sunday. It's still mid 60s for low Saturday morning. So still, as we start off the weekend tomorrow morning, it's not real bad. It's more mild, but it's not real warm or muggy for at least the start of the day, but it does turn muggy likely pretty quick, and it turns very warm pretty quick throughout the day Saturday. So don't get me wrong, it can be still not too bad for the initial start of the day tomorrow, but it's going to turn warm and muggy pretty quick likely on Saturday. And again, by Sunday, it's hot and it's just unbearably humid. I think really Sunday on for a lot of next week, it's that heat that almost takes your breath away when you step outside the door and just makes you want to go back inside. It's just not weather that is enjoyable at all to be out in. And again, it can be dangerous if you are, especially with any physical activity outside, obviously you want to try to avoid that. If you can't, you just got to be safe with it, right? Make sure you're drinking plenty of water, taking breaks from that heat, air conditioning, find ways to cool down. Certainly want to practice those heat safety tips. And as we do look ahead going into next week, as the temperatures ramp up. And it is unfortunate that we're dealing with this excessive heat, but it's certainly great news to deal with that low precipitation threat here for a lot of the next week. I do think later next week we can see the precipitation threat pick up. We could deal with more of those showers and thunderstorms developing into the afternoon, maybe some even by Wednesday, but certainly more into Thursday and Friday. I think as the week progresses next week, the chances are going to pick up. I don't foresee any threat Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I think we're likely dry. It's a slight chance, but by Wednesday, a little better odds to see that isolated shower thunderstorm developing in the afternoon. And then I think that chance further increases a bit Thursday into Friday. So not likely a real wet day looking ahead, but we can start to see some of those showers and thunderstorms that are more scattered popping up in the afternoon and evening hours, especially by the middle to latter part of next week. But thankfully, as you can see, this is still a mostly dry pattern. This is not a real wet pattern that is in place here over the next week. It is a hot and humid one, though, that's for sure. There's those high temperatures again, even as early as tomorrow afternoon. We are close to 90. We're right below it. We're well in the 80s. Some of those warm spots tomorrow we're likely hitting that 90-degree mark. We're all in the 90s then likely by Sunday, and that will carry over through at least Wednesday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days straight, at least 4 days straight of highs 90 plus. Again, Thursday, we're still likely topping off around 90, and we're very close Friday as well. So, we've got a handful of days here where we are near, if not in the 90s, a guaranteed 4 days, likely 90 plus. We're in the mid lower 90s. Sunday going through Wednesday. The hottest 2 days will likely end up arriving Monday and Tuesday. But just in general, that 4 day stretch, that's where that excessive heat watch has been issued. If you have seen that, just emphasizing the fact that just, be prepared for this hot stretch of weather as we do look ahead. Sunday, especially into Wednesday, that's going to be that hottest stretch of weather. And yes, if you're wondering in terms of record highs, we're going to be close for a lot of these days. Monday, great chance to reach it and maybe even break that previous record of 94 degrees. We're looking at records for the Wheeling area, and we are close to it Sunday by just a couple degrees off, 3 degrees off on Tuesday, 4 degrees off on Wednesday. So, within that stretch of Sunday through Wednesday, within a handful of degrees from record highs, possibly surpassing it. If we could trend a little warmer than anticipated for another one of those days, then we could very well, be setting records for a couple days. But certainly looking at some near record warmth Sunday through Wednesday, and then we'll get further from those record highs with that cool down starting likely on Thursday, and that will carry over then going into the following weekend. Not to say it's going to get real cool, but not quite as hot likely late next week with respect to that Sunday through Wednesday. Again, that's really the emphasis of this hot stretch of weather is going to be Sunday through Wednesday. And unfortunately for that entirety of that stretch, it's just unbearably humid. So we're going to be very similar to where we were for earlier this week, where you stepped out and it was just unbearably humid. You almost wanted to go back inside, right? And it is going to be unbearably humid Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Really, I think a lot of next week. Temperatures can start to drop a bit late next week, but I think that humidity stays fairly high. I don't think there's too much relief from it. So unfortunately, it's still more tolerable Saturday. It is going to start to turn muggy on us, right? Well, we'll feel it. It's going to be humid tomorrow. But with respect to Sunday, Saturday is likely not quite as bad. And then it's just unbearably humid Sunday, and then just continuing for a lot of next week. So that being said, the heat index will come into play. It will feel warmer than the actual air temperature. Again, the whole science behind the heat index, why does it feel warmer to us? It all has to do with our sweat. Which I know we may not want to be talking about our sweat, but that is the science behind it. The reasoning we get sweaty when it's hot out. I know not a pleasant sight, but a pleasant picture, but that is the case. So what's happening here when we're dealing with more moisture present in the atmosphere, the amount of sweat on your skin that's evaporating is much less. With respect, if we had dry air in place, we had more comfortable air in place, that sweat your body's producing is going to evaporate. Now, as the sweat evaporates off our skin, we have what's actually evaporative cooling. It's a cooling effect. It's our body's way to naturally cool. As the sweat evaporates off our skin, we see that with thermodynamics, what we call a process called evaporative cooling. It's a cooling effect. It's a body's natural way to cool itself. We sweat, that sweat evaporates, and it helps cool us down. Of course, what happens when the sweat doesn't evaporate? Well, we don't cool down, and it feels even hotter, right? It feels even hotter. So that's the reasoning why we get sweaty on these real humid days. And that sweat that our body's producing, a lot less of it's evaporating, and we are not cooling down like we would be with more comfortable air in place with that lower humidity. So that's the science behind it. That's the reasoning why it's going to feel even hotter to us when we're dealing with some very humid conditions. And it already feel like it's in the 90s Saturday. It's going to feel close to, if not into the 100s, then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Those are 4 days where, again, it's going to feel the hottest. It's going to be the hottest. That 4-day stretch is where that excessive heat watch is in effect. That's a product issued by the National Weather Service office in Pittsburgh. So now is the time to practice that heat safety, right? And you want to be checking up on your friends, neighbors, loved ones during this stretch. Make sure everyone's doing okay. And again, stay tuned with News 9. I know we'll be issuing throughout this weekend and into next week. We'll be, reporting on some cooling centers that I'm sure will be opening up across the area. So if you need that place to go and take a break, the heat, and get into some air conditioning, I'm sure there'll be some cooling centers that'll be opening up across the area. So keep an eye and ear out for those. And, if you can't find one offhand, I think a great resource. My best advice would just be call your local fire department. Maybe they can offer you to come in, or they can point you in the right direction if you call your local fire department. I'm sure that's a great first step of where they can help direct you to getting that cooling center. I know there's some fire departments that often do open up for some cooling centers. So that is a good option. If you're not sure or can't find the information offhand throughout this weekend, and if you need a place to cool down, that's a good place to start. Again, even if they won't offer it there at the fire station, they can at least point you in the right direction of where to go and try to cool down during this stretch. And some of the dangers of the heat, I want to see if I can actually take a minute and pull this up, because it's really good to know. So when it comes to the dangers of heat, we're really talking about the heat exhaustion and the heat stroke. Those are the two dangers of the heat. And I'm seeing if I can find this real quick to pull it up, because unfortunately I don't have it offhand, but it would be good to go over this as we do see these temperatures ramp up for this weekend. It would be good to go over this, because it's good to really know the differences between the two, some of the symptoms of it, and it's good to know that as these temperatures are picking up. So let me see if I can find it. If you give me just a minute, and see if we can find that, and then we can go over it, because it's certainly good to know when we're dealing with these hot temperatures here over the next week. And again, during this stretch, thankfully, a lot of it is dry. So as much as we don't want to see the heat coming our way, and there's certainly some safety concerns in that as well, it is certainly good to see that we're dealing with a lot drier weather during this stretch. So certainly good to see coming our way. So here we go. So I found I'm going to pop it up here. So get good information to know some of the dangers of dealing with this heat. So heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So these are the real dangers of heat. So keep an eye, ear out. Keep an eye, ear out for these symptoms. Right. For if you're noticing yourself, if you're seeing someone else that may be displaying these symptoms, here's what to watch for both heat exhaustion and for heat stroke. So some of the symptoms to watch for. So if you're getting heat exhaustion, right, if you've been out the heat for a long period of time, you may start to develop symptoms of feeling faint or dizzy. So if you notice someone that's more dizzy or feeling faint, maybe they're walking a little off, and they look like they may fall over, where they're starting to get dizzy or faint, that's an alarming symptom of potential heat exhaustion. Another symptom is excessive sweating. So if you're feeling faint, dizzy, or excessively sweating, you have a cool, pale, clammy skin. These are all symptoms of heat exhaustion. Also nausea, vomiting, which is actually a symptom of both heat exhaustion as well as heat stroke. A rapid, weak pulse with heat exhaustion, and muscle cramps. So if you're noticing those symptoms, that are symptoms of a heat exhaustion. Now, what makes the difference between heat exhaustion and a heat stroke? Well, symptoms that are more indicative of a heat stroke would be the fact that you are not sweating. So if you're still excessively sweating, you're likely dealing with more heat exhaustion. But if you've noticed that you have stopped sweating, you notice that your skin is red and it's hot, right? It's not cool, pale, clammy. It's not wet. It's not wet from the excessive sweating. It's red. It's hot. It's dry. You stop sweating. You have a throbbing headache, rapid, strong pulse. Those are symptoms more indicative of a heat stroke, not heat exhaustion. So if you've noticed that, if you or a loved one, friend, family member, whoever it may be, right? If you notice that they've been out in the heat for a while and they're not sweating, they've got red, hot, dry skin, they're complaining of a throbbing headache, those are all alarm bells of a heat stroke. And the big difference between these two, if you're noticing the symptoms of heat exhaustion, get out of the heat immediately. Get to that cool, air-conditioned place, drink water, take a cool shower, anything you can to cool down. And get some water in, stay hydrated. But if you're noticing those symptoms of a heat stroke, you want to be taking those steps, but first of all, you want to be calling 911, right? That's in a medical emergency with a heat stroke, which again, the differences between the two, instead of just starting to get exhausted from that heat coming up over this coming week, the symptoms to watch for with the heat stroke is that throbbing headache. You're not sweating. You have red, hot, dry skin. Those are all symptoms more indicative of a heat stroke, not just being exhausted from the heat. Again, if you have heat exhaustion, you're still likely excessively sweating. You may feel faint or dizzy, but you don't have that real throbbing headache. You have more of a cool, pale, clammy skin, not a red, hot, dry skin. You have a rapid and more of a weak pulse. You still have a rapid pulse in a heat stroke, but it's much stronger. And again, you have red, hot, dry skin. You're not sweating, a throbbing headache. Those are some of the symptoms to watch for with a heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And these are the dangers that we deal with when it comes to that heat. And we don't want to take this lightly. And we want to be very careful with this this coming week. We don't want to take this heat lightly. Again, don't push yourself outdoors. Take lots of breaks in the air conditioning shades. Drink lots of water. Stay hydrated during this stretch, and don't take the heat lightly. It's nothing to take lightly. And unfortunately, these low temperatures are remaining warm during the stretch. So the unfortunate part is that there's just not much relief at night. So these highs are in the 90s. It's going to feel like it's into the 100s, but at night the lowest we go is for a lot of the stretches the lower 70s. That's warm and muggy. Anytime you're dealing with a low 70 plus, that feels warm to us. Those are those warm, muggy nights, and that's what we're going to see. So there's no drop into the 60s or 50s. There's no relief from this warmth even overnight. So that's the other dangerous aspect to this as well, that if you're trying to, cool down and open up the windows at night, unfortunately, there's just not going to be much relief because, it's still going to let in some of that warm, muggy air. It's just unfortunate. There's those overnight lows. Look, 70 plus, likely starting Sunday morning all the way then going through Friday morning. So we have a stretch of likely at least 6 mornings in a row where we're going to be dealing with those those low temperatures above 70, at least 70, if not above 70 degrees. Warm, muggy nights. Those are not pleasant nights at all. And that is largely due to the fact we have the unbearably humid conditions in place. Our dew points are going to be on par with those lows, mid-lower 70s. That is a tropical air mass that is just unbearably humid. To deal with dew point 70 plus is where you just almost start to instantly sweat when you step outside the door. So, and when you combine that with those highs in the 90s, and it's going to feel like it's in the hundreds. So great, right, that we're not dealing with much rain here near term. Thankfully, we have a stretch where we don't have to worry about flooding, severe weather concerns, but can't urge you enough not to take this heat lightly and be safe with it, right? And check up on your loved ones, friends, your neighbors during this hot stretch. Offer them a place if they need a place maybe to cool down, and maybe they're having issues with their air conditioning. Maybe they don't have air conditioning, invite them in, right? Be there for each other during this stretch. And again, if you're at home wondering where to go, I would, watch as we go throughout this weekend and into next week. I'm sure here at News 9, we're going to be listing a lot of cooling centers and reporting on locations where to go, and likely even giving some heat safety tip stories as well during the stretch. But I would, even if you're in need before that, I think a really good place to start would be your local fire department. And you could call them up, even if they're not offering a cooling center in their location. I'm sure that they can point you in the right direction, and they can give you a place to go nearby, or possibly point you in a direction or a different place to call. And maybe that location then could point you in the right direction. If it's your local health department, maybe the fire station will point you to your local health department in the county. Or, I'm sure that you can, if you call your local health department or local fire department, I'm sure they can point you in the right direction of where a cooling center will be open. And if you need to, find a place to get in some air conditioning and take a break from this heat, there'll, I'm sure, be some places open across the area to offer that as we extend into next week. Sean says, good evening. Not looking forward to this heat wave. Not at all. Not at all, Sean. Thankfully, enjoying this much drier weather, but certainly not looking forward to this hot and humid weather. That's for sure. Carol, thanks. You're very welcome, Carol. You're very welcome. Thank you for tuning in. All of you for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Also saying happy first day of summer. What's your favorite barbecue to cook out during the summer months? What's my favorite barbecue to cook out during the summer months? What's my favorite? I don't know if I have a favorite barbecue. It's always good to I'm more of a brat, so I like more brats than I do hot dogs. If you're cooking them up over a campfire, probably more of that. Burgers, brats. I like to cook out more of that more than hot dogs. So I don't know if I have a barbecue, but that's probably what I'd pick, Austin. I love to have a good old campfire into the summer months, into the evening. Maybe not so much during this hot stretch, but when it gets a bit cooler, certainly enjoy that. And yeah, I'd say enjoy more brats, I think, over the fire than just not too much of a hot dog fan personally. But yeah, I go for a good brat or certainly some burgers on the grill. Cook out some burgers. It's always good as well. So that'd probably be my answer. But yes, Austin, first day of summer as well. I mentioned this yesterday, didn't mention it so far for today, but the countdown's on. It's actually not occurred yet, but here coming up 10:32 and just a couple hours roughly, the summer solstice will occur. So we'll be kicking off summer here in just a couple of hours. Today did mark for us here in the Ohio Valley with the summer solstice. Today's the longest day of the year. Today's the longest day of the year. We don't notice it too much because it's a gradual process, but after today, we're going to gradually start to see our days shorten, and we'll actually gradually start to see the sun set a little bit early. Again, it's a gradual process, but we do technically lose daylight in the summer months, and we technically gain it in the winter. It's a bit counterintuitive, but that is the case, as once we get past the winter solstice, we'll actually notice then the days get a little longer. Gradual process, they'll get longer, and now we're getting that gradual process of getting shorter days past our summer solstice today, looking ahead in summer months. But these temperatures ramping up soon as summer starts. Mother Nature says, here's the hot and humid weather. That's for sure, coinciding right with the beginning of summer. Ty says, do you think the extreme heat watch will be upgraded to an extreme heat warning on Sunday? Could very well be, Tice. Could very well be dealing with the heat product. And these heat index values are likely, it's going to be close. They're near 100, may very well reach in the lower 100s. And we're right in that range. And we're into that range of extreme caution, almost danger of 105 plus for a heat index. So yeah, certainly going to be quite excessive I think they very well could by the time Sunday rolls around. And, no matter what product the National Weather Service has in place, just certainly, again, just, don't take it lightly, right? And definitely want to be safe with it because it's very humid. Not only it's hot, but it's very humid. And that's never a good combination. That heat index is what we're to really watch for. Again, just how hot it feels to us. And it's going to be near, if not into the 100s, Sunday all the way through Wednesday. During that 3-day stretch, it's near, if not into the 100s, is how hot it is going to feel. So that's the stretch to be very careful outdoors. Monday, Tuesdays likely ends up being the warmest of the bunch out of the 3-day stretch, near record highs, within a handful of degrees of record highs Sunday through Wednesday. So yes, certainly want to be practicing the heat safety. And of course, don't forget, I know most of us, we're not going to have our, furry friends out in this, but, certainly be cautious with your pets as well. Don't be walking them in this hot weather. That pavement can burn their paws when it gets this hot, and that sun's beating down on that pavement, and it gets pretty dangerous. Another thing to note as well, the playground equipment can get dangerously hot for your kids. So just something else to note. It's obviously going to be better to jump in the pool, right? Find the nearest pool with your kids, or find a way to cool down a splash pad or something. But the playground equipment can get dangerously hot in this heat in the sun. The pavement gets dangerously hot for your dog's paws. Obviously, you want to be bringing your dogs inside during this hot stretch. Don't leave them out. They're susceptible to dealing with that heat exhaustion and heat stroke, just like us. And, with their fur, it's even worse for them, right? They have almost like a coat on outside. So, certainly want to be keeping our furry friends in mind and bringing them in during this heat and letting them cool down. Make sure they got plenty of water as well. And again, watch that playground equipment. It can get dangerously hot. It may very well end up burning. It is possible. So don't want to end up with that. So but just some side notes, just something to keep in mind as well when these temperatures are picking up, is that playground equipment can be dangerously hot. Pavement can be dangerously hot for your dog's paws. And, certainly want to be keeping our furry friends safe, as well as ourselves and our family members, loved ones during the stretch as well. I'll be having the latest coming up on News 9 at 10 on Fox 9, News 9 to 9/11. Of course, with that next edition of Nate at 8 will be Monday, not being on the weekend, but that next edition of Nate at 8 will be on Mondays. So we'll be joining you back here, and we'll be discussing, well, just how hot Sunday was and Monday was, and how hot it's still going to be for the next couple of days. So, at that point, we're going to be in that middle stretch of dealing with this heat wave coming our way, and it will likely be a heat wave. 3 days plus 90 plus degrees. We're easily beating that. That's what constitutes a heat wave for our area, is 3 or more days of 90 plus highs. Well, we're easily reaching that. This will be our first heat wave of the year. And also, interestingly enough, Saturday, tomorrow, we are likely in the upper 80s. Our warmest high temperatures so far for this year, it was 86 degrees, and that was back in April. So this will be the warmest day likely of the year, Saturday. And if we trend a little cooler Saturday, it's certainly going to be occurring on Sunday. This will be the warmest days of the year, the warmest day of the year. And we had a warmer day in April than we had for the entirety of May. And now temperatures into the latter part of June are certainly, this is such a far cry from the end of June with respect to the end of May. We really go from one extreme to the next, really. We had an unseasonably cool and fairly rare, I would say, into the month of May in terms of how cool it was. And now it's really the flip side. We are getting, unseasonably warm here at the end of June. So what a difference in a matter of a month. And again, we're likely to end up with the warmest day for this year on Saturday. And if we're starting a little bit cooler, maybe we only hit 86 at the Ohio County Airport. Well, we'll surpass that Sunday. But the warmest day of the year will occur for this weekend, and it'll beat out the warmest day which was 86 degrees back in April at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. Just something else interesting to note, that the warmest day we've had so far for this year has only been 86, and that occurred in April. Now these temperatures are ramping up, and we'll certainly be surpassing that easily for this weekend, and even into next week with those highs 90 plus. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, be safe as these temperatures are ramping up this weekend. Be there for each other. Check up on your friends, loved ones, neighbors, your furry friends as well. Don't forget about them. Don't keep them outside in this heat. Make sure they got plenty of water as well, and just be safe with this. And don't push yourself out in the heat. Take breaks at air conditioning. Drink lots of water during this stretch, and be safe, as heat is something not to take lightly. And it's going to be very hot here over the next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, no edition of Nate at 8 for the weekend, but we'll be right back here on Monday evening for that next edition of Nate at 8. So until then, I hope you have a wonderful night, a great weekend, and I'll see you all on the next edition of Nate at 8.